15-year-old Maya Johnson lay awake in her twin bed long after her parents had drifted into sleep. The glow of her phone illuminated her determined face as she scrolled through news alerts. Anger flared over video footage of black residents pleading with City Hall to address long-standing police brutality, only to be met with curt dismissals and silence. The mayor's televised statement had been a single sentence: "We'll review the concerns at a later date," before he strode from the podium, leaving the crowd outside to vent their frustration into the rain-soaked pavement. Downstairs, the muted hum of the family TV carried the sound of police sirens responding to yet another protest that had turned tense. But here in her bedroom, Maya felt something stir, a recognition that at 17, she could no longer wait for someone else to demand justice. She tapped a fresh note in her phone's memo app. Plan peaceful youth march. Goal: force mayoral apology. Morning sunlight filtered through her bedroom curtains as Maya prepared for school. In the kitchen, her mother, Angela, a community organizer, browbeat leftover anxiety from last night's council meeting. They ignored us again," Angela muttered, drumming her fingers on the counter. "I can't believe they won't even meet with our delegation." Maya poured cereal, heart pounding. She looked up, voice steady. "What if the community sees our frustration and thinks we don't care? I want people to know this matters. To everyone, not just us." Angela paused, spoon midair, and regarded her daughter with a mix of pride and worry. "You're serious?" "Completely," Maya replied. "Let's show them that when young black voices rise together, they can't be ignored." By lunchtime, Maya's classmates buzzed with rumors of another walkout. Shelfie, her best friend and yearbook editor, had plastered the hallway with hand-drawn flyers. "March for Respect. Meet at Lincoln Park, 4 p.m. Friday." The flyers bore a simple image: raised hands in silhouette beneath the city skyline, and a single instruction: bring water, signs, and courage. In English class, Mr. Patel, an empathetic teacher who'd guided Maya through essays about Langston Hughes and civic duty, paused mid-lecture and asked, "Any of you heard about the mayor's refusal to hear the protesters last night?" Without waiting, Maya raised her hand. "He told us to be patient," she said, voice clear enough for the whole room to hear. "But this week alone, a black teen was handcuffed for speaking out. Our community center has fewer resources than ever, and they expect us to wait?" A ripple of nods spread through the desks. After the bell, Maya and Shelfie convened at Maya's locker, surrounded by a small circle of friends. Jamal, a student athlete tired of playing second fiddle. Lucia, whose older brother faced repeated stop-and-frisk encounters. And Owen, the yearbook, photographer documenting every moment of civic unrest. They shared water bottles, taped cardboard onto wooden dowels for protest signs, and rehearsed their chants. "No justice, no peace," they repeated, finding rhythm in their collective voice. But excitement battled with nerves. "Now what if it rains?" Jamal worried, glancing at the overcast sky. "Or the police break it up?" Owen asked, flipping through his camera settings. Maya shook her head. "That's why we stay peaceful. We'll march, we'll be respectful, and we'll record everything. The world is watching." That afternoon, at exactly 4 p.m., they converged at Lincoln Park's central fountain. Dozens of other teens, black, white, Asian, Latino, stood shoulder to shoulder, chests puffed with determination. Lucia held a sign reading, "Listen up, Mayor," while Shelfie captured candid shots, her lens zooming in on the resolute faces. Maya climbed onto the edge of the fountain, raised her megaphone, and surveyed the crowd. The drone of impatient chatter fell silent. She cleared her throat. "Thank you all for being here," she began, voice steady yet ringing with fervor. "We're not here to destroy our city. We're here to save it. We're here to ask our mayor to see us, to hear us, not as a problem, but as people who deserve respect, safety, and opportunity." Applause rippled through the assembled marchers. As they stepped off, signs aloft and shoes splashing in puddles, Maya led the first chant, "What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now!" Their feet pounded the pavement in unison, echoing through the downtown streets. Bystanders peered from shop windows. Some joined with raised fists. Others watched from doorways, curiosity replacing indifference. Unbeknownst to them, the local news helicopter swung above, its camera trained on the growing river of young protesters. And in City Hall, aides stared in alarm at the live feed, a predominantly teenage march winding toward the very steps where the mayor had rebuffed their predecessors. In that charged moment, when youthful resolve met institutional indifference, Maya felt the swell of possibility. The protest had begun. Now it was a matter of whether their peaceful unity could force the apology that would rewrite the city's silence. The moment Maya's barefoot on the pavement march reached the grand stone steps of City Hall, a hush fell over the protesters. Their chants, "Justice now" and "Listen to our voices," reverberated against Corinthian columns and the ornate bronze doors. Maya lifted her megaphone again, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "Mayor Reynolds," she called, "we demand you come out and speak with us." Inside the cavernous lobby, Mayor Reynolds was mid-briefing with his senior staff when an aide burst in. "Sir, there's a large demonstration of youth outside. Live on every local network." A ripple of alarm passed through the room. Reynolds, accustomed to scripted press conferences and controlled photo ops, tightened his jaw. "Oh, they're just kids," he muttered. "Send someone to tell them we'll get to their concerns next week." Back on the steps, Maya's circle closed in. Two uniformed officers in Navy riot gear emerged at the top of the stairway and lifted their hands in a choreographed gesture. "Please step back for your safety." The teens exchanged determined glances. Lucia, clutching her "Respect Our Rights" sign, stepped forward. "We're peaceful," she called. "We're not stepping back until we hear from the mayor." As the rain began to patter, Jamal raised his homemade poster aloft. "Our futures aren't a campaign prop." And the crowd surged forward an inch, then another. A teenage girl in the front row unfurled a banner that read, "Youth Voices Matter." The scene, live-streamed by Owen's smartphone, went viral within minutes. The image of a multiracial coalition of teens standing firm against a stone facade that represented centuries of power. Inside City Hall, the security team debated pulling the fire alarm to disperse the crowd. Instead, Reynolds agreed to a half-hour delay in his scheduled gala appearance at the downtown convention center, then stepped onto the balcony above the main entrance. He cleared his throat into the microphone of his podium. "Citizens of our city," he began, voice echoing across the plaza, "I hear your call for change." His aides grimaced. He sounded rehearsed, evasive. "I can't address you fully now. I have commitments to attend to, but I promise your concerns will be heard at the next council meeting." A chorus of frustrated boos rose from the crowd. Maya felt the momentum waver. She gripped the megaphone tighter. "That's not good enough," she yelled back. "We came here in faith. Faith that you'd treat us with respect. We won't leave until you commit to a public apology for ignoring our community and schedule a listening session with us this week." Reynolds glanced at his chief of staff, whose pale lips formed a silent warning. This defiance kept the cameras rolling. For a tense moment, city protocol teetered against raw activism. Finally, the mayor sighed, straightened his posture, and lifted a hand. "You have my apology for not taking your concerns seriously," he said, voice low but audible. "I apologize to you, especially to the young people who felt unheard. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I will meet with the youth delegation in this very chamber and record minutes of your proposals publicly." A ripple of stunned silence turned into thunderous applause. Maya lowered her megaphone, mouth curved into a triumphant smile. Together, the students chanted, "Thank you, Mayor! Thank you, Mayor!" Their phones snapped photos. Tears brimmed in young eyes. Lucia wrapped an arm around Maya's waist and whispered, "We did it." As the crowd dispersed in jubilant drizzles, the news helicopters wheeled away, already filing footage. Maya lingered under the arch of the balcony, breathing in the charged air. Behind her, the doors of City Hall opened, inviting them in for a seat at the table they had forced politicians to set. In that electric moment, where youthful determination collided with entrenched power, Maya realized that real change came not from shouting alone, but from standing firm until those in authority bowed to listen. Maya woke before dawn on Saturday, the city's skyline just a silhouette against lavender sky. Today was the day the mayor had promised to meet the youth delegation at City Hall, and she lay in bed rehearsing her opening words. By 7:30 a.m., she and 5 classmates, Shelfie, Jamal, Lucia, Owen, and Marisol, stood before the polished bronze doors, each clutching a neat folder stuffed with typed proposals and photographs documenting last week's protests. Behind them, the echo of their footsteps mingled with the distant hum of traffic, as reporters and a dozen curious onlookers circled the grand entrance. Inside, City Hall's marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Sergeant Alvarez, the mayor's liaison, led them through wide corridors lined with oil portraits of stern-looking past mayors. Each student felt the weight of history pressing in. This building had for generations been a fortress of authority, not a forum for teenage voices. Alvarez stopped before the council chamber's oak double doors. "You'll have 20 minutes. Then the floor opens for questions." His tone was respectful but firm. They had to stay on schedule. The chamber itself was larger than they'd imagined. Tiered benches arced around a semicircle of heavy mahogany desks, behind which sat the mayor and his 5 chief advisors. A raised dais crowned the far wall, beneath a massive seal proclaiming City of New Hope. At the front row, reserved seats for the youth, Maya's heart pounded as they filed in, each student taking a numbered placard, 1 through 6. Cameras clicked. The hush of dozens of smartphones filled the air. Mayor Reynolds entered precisely at 9:02 a.m., flanked by City Attorney Price and Community Affairs Director Chang. His usual swagger was tempered by a measured calm. He offered a brief nod, then gestured to Maya. "Ms. Johnson, the podium is yours." Maya stepped forward, smoothing her shirt and lifting her folder. The room fell silent, every council member's eyes fixed on her, a microphone poised above her head. "Thank you, Mayor Reynolds, council members, and staff," Maya began, voice clear but steady. "Last Friday, we stood on these same steps, demanding recognition of our concerns. Today, we're here to offer concrete solutions. My first proposal is the creation of a Youth Council Advisory Board, composed of 10 voting high school representatives, to meet with city officials quarterly." She clicked to the first slide on the projection screen, a bulleted list backed by photos of the demonstration's multiracial crowd. "This board would ensure our voices aren't heard just once, but become part of every policy conversation." Next, Jamal outlined a community safety plan, mandatory body camera activation for all on- and off-duty officers, combined with a civilian review panel that included at least 2 youth members. He cited statistics on local stops from the previous year and charted the drop in complaints after pilot programs in other cities. Lucia followed with an appeal for expanded after-school funding. Safe spaces and mentors keep teens off the streets and build trust in law enforcement when officers volunteer as coaches, not just enforcers. Shelfie then shared research she'd compiled on mental health resources. "We need a dedicated fund to place licensed counselors in each high school and to train officers in trauma-informed response." Her voice cracked slightly as she spoke of friends who had lost parents in shootings. Owen and Marisol concluded by presenting a joint proposal for a public arts initiative, murals and performances amplifying youth stories, which, they argued, would humanize the faces behind the hashtags. As the final slide faded, Maya closed her folder. A hush lingered before City Attorney Price adjusted his glasses. He leaned forward. "These are all well-researched and practical recommendations. We will draft an ordinance to establish the Youth Advisory Board by next month." His words were met by the soft rustle of paper. Maya dared to hope they were sincere. Mayor Reynolds rose, steepling his fingers. "On behalf of the city, I apologize again for our delay in listening. It is clear you have done your homework, and I commit to moving these proposals through the appropriate committees." He paused, scanning their faces. "Your service tonight reminds us that leadership isn't confined to elected office. It's embodied by any citizen willing to speak up." He offered Maya a small, respectful nod. Outside the chamber, the delegation exhaled into the crisp morning air. Reporters mobbed them with questions. "Do you believe the mayor will follow through? How will you hold him accountable?" And their unity under the soaring columns felt unbreakable. On the steps, Maya looked back at City Hall's imposing facade. Moments ago, a barrier. It now felt like a gateway, the place where teenage voices had cracked open the doors of power. By noon, their proposals were already circulating among council committees. Emails of support poured in from across the city. Local nonprofits offered to serve on advisory panels. At a local cafe later that afternoon, the students celebrated with orange juice and bagels, exchanging high fives and teasing Shelfie about her perfect slides. Lucia caught Maya's eye across the table. "We did it," she said softly. Maya smiled, thinking of all the hours of planning, the fear, and the determination that had led to this victory. In the days that followed, posters bearing the Youth Advisory Board's logo began to appear in every library and rec center. Maya's phone buzzed with invitations. to speak at neighborhood associations, to join the planning committee for the Public Arts Initiative, even to advise the state legislature on youth engagement. The echo of their footsteps on the marble floors of City Hall had reverberated far beyond the chamber, reminding everyone that change flourished when the next generation refused to remain silent. And as Maya prepared for her next meeting, she carried with her the conviction that when the halls of power opened to young people, a city's future would grow brighter for all. The morning after their triumphant council presentation, Maya awoke to a flurry of texts and emails. The city clerk had posted the formal ordinance draft for the Youth Advisory Board on the municipal website, and dozens of civic groups had already signaled their willingness to provide meeting space, clerical support, and training resources. Maya dressed quickly, her heart thrumming with the knowledge that her proposal was no longer theory. It was moving into action. At the historic Union Street Community Center that evening, Maya and her 5 classmates, now officially recognized as founding members, filed into a bright conference room. A long table faced rows of folding chairs, and at its head stood a banner reading, City of New Hope Youth Advisory Board First Convening. The mayor himself arrived punctually, accompanied by Community Affairs Director Chang and Sergeant Alvarez. Chang offered welcoming remarks, emphasizing that this board would have equal voting power on issues related to youth safety, education, and community engagement. Maya, now vice president of the board, stood at the podium, smoothing her notes. Thank you for trusting us with this responsibility, she began. Tonight, our first task is to establish bylaws and elect a chairperson. Amid nods from veteran civic leaders seated in the back, the 9 board members, representing every high school and middle school district, introduced themselves. They ranged from student athletes to science club presidents to art students, each bringing unique perspectives on why young voices mattered. When the nominations opened, Jamal's quiet confidence and organizational prowess won him the chair's gavel, while Maya was elected secretary, tasked with drafting meeting minutes and coordinating proposals. Business moved swiftly. The board's bylaws outlined quarterly meetings at rotating community venues, transparent publication of agendas, and a direct reporting requirement to the City Council's Public Safety Committee. Their first working committee formed around safety and accountability, focusing on the proposed body camera policies. Lucia led that group, enlisting 2 fellow board members to collect feedback from neighborhood watch groups, local advocacy organizations, and even retired law enforcement officers. Through spirited debate, they refined the language of the civilian review panel to include not only youth representatives, but also mental health professionals and legal advisors, ensuring a balanced, multidisciplinary approach. Meanwhile, Shelfie and Owen spearheaded the Public Engagement Committee. They launched a social media campaign, #YouthAtTheTable, encouraging students across the city to submit video testimonials about what safety meant to them. Within days, dozens of clips flooded in. A black student recounting a stop and frisk incident, an immigrant teen pleading for language access police training, a disabled student urging sanctuary policies for individuals with mental health crises. The board compiled the videos into a short documentary, which they previewed at a packed screening at the downtown library. The room erupted in applause when Maya's closing message scrolled across the screen. Our stories are not statistics. They are our lives. Listen with respect. As autumn deepened, the board's work extended beyond policy drafting. They partnered with the local fire department to create a Safety in the Schools program, training peer mediators to de-escalate conflicts on campus, an initiative piloted at Maya's high school, where students reported a 30% drop in disciplinary incidents within 2 months. At City Hall, Councilmember Ortiz publicly praised the board's achievements in a citywide address, pledging to allocate an additional $50,000 in youth-centric safety grants the following fiscal year. Yet the path was not without obstacles. One evening, Maya arrived at a committee meeting to find a lone protester, a campus political extremist, distributed leaflets claiming the Youth Advisory Board was a puppet of the mayor. He disrupted the meeting, denouncing the board's legitimacy. When security moved to escort him out, Maya stepped forward and offered him the mic. Instead of anger, she responded, "We created this board so every voice, even yours, can be heard respectfully. If you have concerns about our process, submit them formally. We'll review them at the next meeting." The protester, stunned by her calm invitation, stammered a half-hearted apology and slipped away. The board members exchanged impressed glances. Maya had reminded everyone that respectful inclusion was their guiding principle. By December, council chambers were no longer a distant fortress. Maya and several board members sat side by side with adults in the Public Safety Committee, voting on the final body camera ordinance. When the gavel fell on a 7-2 approval, the council chamber burst into applause, an echo of the cheers that had once greeted Maya's first speech. Mayor Reynolds rose and approached Maya. "You and your teammates have changed the way this city governs itself," he said quietly. "Thank you for reminding us that leadership knows no age." As snowfall dusted the marble steps outside, Maya paused to breathe in the crisp air. Around her, board members posed for photos before dispersing into the evening. Each carried the weight and the promise of youth empowerment. The once silent hallways of power now rang with their voices, woven into the very fabric of city governance. And Maya, pen poised over her notepad, realized that this chapter of promise made and fulfilled was only the beginning of a legacy that would shape New Hope for generations to come. By the first blush of spring, New Hope looked and felt transformed. The once quiet corridors of City Hall now hummed with youthful energy. Pamphlets in the lobby invited residents to attend the quarterly Youth Advisory Board meetings, and the gallery walls displayed photos of teens testifying on the council floor. Maya Johnson stepped through the double doors on a warm April morning, inhaling the promise of change that lingered in the marble air. Today's agenda was ambitious. The board had been invited to co-host a joint meeting with the City Council's Education Committee to finalize the distribution of the new $100,000 Youth Safety and Enrichment Fund, a direct result of their advocacy. As secretary, Maya stood at the front to record the proceedings. Jamal, now board chair, prepared to deliver opening remarks. Council chambers filled quickly. Teachers, parents, police liaisons, and neighborhood leaders took seats beside the 9 youth delegates. At precisely 9 a.m., Council President Alvarez called the meeting to order and introduced Jamal. Clad in a crisp blazer, Jamal spoke with measured confidence. "Thanks to the city's commitment, we can now expand our peer mediator program to every middle and high school, fund after-school enrichment programs in STEM and the arts, and provide grants for youth-led community projects. Tonight, we'll vote on the final allocations." He clicked to a slide detailing the recommended breakdown: 40% for peer mediation training and stipends, 30% for after-school clubs, 20% set aside as micro-grants for youth initiatives, and 10% for administrative support and outreach materials. The room broke into appreciative nods. Councilmember Ortiz rose first. "This is exactly the kind of tangible impact we envisioned when we passed the ordinance," she said. "I move to adopt these allocations as presented." A seasoned counselor proposed a friendly amendment to increase the micro-grant pool from 20% to 25%, citing the success of pilot projects like the Peace Mural in the West End and the summer coding camp at Lincoln High. After robust discussion, the amendment passed unanimously, demonstrating the city's willingness to refine policy through collaborative dialogue. With the fund awards finalized, the mayor stood to address the assembled. Mayor Reynolds, who had once brushed aside protesters, spoke with heartfelt sincerity. "I apologize again for the city's failure to engage our youth sooner. You have shown us the power of listening. From here forward, every budget cycle will include a youth advisory public hearing. You are no longer guests in this building. You are partners in governance." After the meeting, Maya and her fellow board members fielded questions from local reporters. One asked how it felt to reshape an entire city's approach to youth engagement. Another inquired about plans for the first micro-grant cycle. Maya responded thoughtfully, "We want to empower every young resident to identify a need in their community. Whether it's a neighborhood cleanup, a mental health workshop, or a startup incubator for student entrepreneurs, and give them the resources." To make it happen. That afternoon, Maya walked across the plaza to the recently unveiled Youth Opportunities Center, housed in a renovated old library branch. Inside, she greeted a line of middle schoolers waiting for free tutoring and a code club workshop. She spotted Shelfie showing a group how to storyboard their own public service announcements, while Lucia and Owen decorated the walls with student-created murals illustrating the city's motto, Engaged Youth, Thriving City. Later, Maya joined a panel discussion at the mayor's annual gala, seated beside police chiefs and nonprofit directors. She shared the dais with a surprising guest, the teenage protester from the earlier demonstrators' leaflets, now a volunteer peer mediator in the school's program. They exchanged a brief, affirming nod, proof that respectful dialogue could transform dissent into cooperation. As dusk settled and lanterns lit the gala ballroom, Maya stole a moment on the balcony overlooking City Hall's illuminated facade. The bronze seal, once a symbol of authority that had loomed above her first protest, now felt like a beacon guiding her generation forward. She laid a hand against the cool stone and whispered, "We did this together." In the months and years that followed, New Hope continued to evolve. Teen-designed safe walking routes reduced after-school incidents, youth-authored public art campaigns, beautified neglected neighborhoods. Peer mediator statistics showed a steady drop in school suspensions. And every quarter, the Youth Advisory Board returned to City Hall, Maya now graduated and serving as a mentor, to record fresh proposals and keep the wheels of change turning. Maya realized that the true legacy of their action wasn't a single apology or policy victory. It was the enduring principle that when young people raise their voices, authorities must not only listen, but also act. And under that principle, New Hope's future shone brighter than any spring sunrise.